how does Gus do this? What does he do? It's like this. No, I need a better this.
That was pretty good.
All right, hold on. Theme song. This is the Motion Pixels podcast. I'm your host, not August Meyer, who is not here today, but instead, I am Matthew Rawlings. And I'm going to just take the title of host today instead of co-host, since I'm here on my own, flying solo. But not really, because with me, I have the bad boy of comedy, Camper Dane, Uncle Dane, here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Solo host Matt.
Solo host Matt. Yeah, it's a new era. I'm really just trying to branch out and see. I'm trying an experiment, like cutting the dead weight. Is kind of what I have down in my notebook. Like,
it's time to rebrand.
Just to kind of see how it is. But yeah, this week, Dane, I was inspired by something you had said a couple episodes ago. You were talking about a theme that you'd like to come back to sometime that was nostalgia.
Oh, and just the subject of nostalgia?
Yeah, nostalgia in games, movies, things like that, and how it, like, I kind of saw it as how it might color how people see, but just like weird things you find yourself nostalgic about, and maybe wanting to revisit, or maybe like you have revisited and have now seen that it's not the way you remembered.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I can think of a few examples off the top of my head. Do you have anything? I mean, you obviously might have done a little bit more thinking on it ever since I brought it up the first time. Do you have anything like that?
I would be curious to hear what you have to say first.
Okay,
so let's just start with you.
Okay, so there are two video games. The first one I'll briefly mention because I only started thinking about it recently because I'm working on this video, and when I usually make videos, I go through and I try and find video game soundtracks to put in the background because generally video game soundtracks are safe to use on YouTube for music in place of like free rights music, because it's impossible to copyright strike video game music when playing video games is not copyright strikeable on YouTube. Anyway, I was looking up like games that I've played, games that I enjoyed, and I remember this game that I used to play for the PC called Earthworm Jim. And it was for the PC. Apparently it was for the NES as well, but the NES version is kind of like the first version, and then the PC version, it kind of like upgraded everything, including the music. And so like I have this very vivid memory of the music in that game being awesome for the time, because it was like it was for like a Windows 95 CD or something. It's ridiculous. It was like a compilation disc of all these games called like Windows 95 games or something like that, and the star game that was on it had a bunch of like shitty games on it, but the star game was Earthworm Jim. And I played the crap out of that game growing up, and I loved the music on it because, like, when it came to video game music back then, it was like they always would have to put it on a cartridge, so that it was usually like 8-bit music or like chiptune music. So the music for the Earthworm Jim soundtrack for the NES, as far as I know, I went back and I listened to it, and I was like, this sounds way worse than I remember. And I found out that when they made it for the CD, they upgraded all of the sprites, they upgraded everything because they could fit it on a bigger thing. They also apparently recorded all of the music like in studio, or they made it in like a normal music making program, and then they had to downgrade it into like chiptune version or a MIDI version for the the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the SNES, SNES, and then so I got kind of the premium version of that music growing up, and I remember it as being like, it really stood out to me because every other video game music I'd heard up until then was like kind of crappier version. Anyway, that music was awesome, and I was looking up the music today, and I found out that you can get it on the Switch, Earthworm Jim. You can just play it on the Switch. I was like, oh,
yeah,
sweet.
I was gonna ask because they made the remake in the PS3 360 Wii era. So
Oh, really? They remade it?
Yeah, they did like an HD remake, and it was huge news because like I don't know if I actually played that game, but for some reason as a kid, I thought Earthworm Jim was the coolest fucking thing.
There was
Like,
a TV show, wasn't there? I never watched the
was
TV
that
show.
it? Okay,
Yeah,
I
there was
must
a
have watched the
television
TV
show. Yeah. I don't remember what network it was on, but that was another big part of it. But I was just mostly into playing the game because I could play it on my mom's laptop, and yeah, I went back and I played it it was basically just a port to the Nintendo Switch, and I played the first level and I was just like, this game sucks, dude. Like this is not what I remember, man. Like, and that was kind of the reason why I was bringing up nostalgia in the first place, is because I know that a lot of people, they go and they have these very vivid memories of things being the way that they remember them, but they never actually go back and like experience them objectively. They never go back and say like, I want to look at this through my eyes now instead of how I remember it. But I don't really do that. I always experience something like I'm experiencing it for the first time, no matter how nostalgic I am about it, and it kind of like ruins things for me. In fact, I've kind of avoided a lot of certain things that I don't really want ruined on purpose because I know that I'm this way now. The other game that I wanted to talk about that I've had this experience with was Morrowind, because I fucking loved that game growing up. Like when I was in high school, like freshman year, like 2014, I played that game like all summer one summer. I played it. That was the only game I played every single day, like 8 hours a day. Woke up, that was my job. I woke up, played Morrowind, and I loved that game so much. And it like got me into the Elder Scrolls like series and stuff, which is like one of my favorite games still to this day, like Skyrim and all that. But I recently being like a year or two ago, went back and reinstalled it. I got it on Steam and I booted it up. I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be nostalgic as hell, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Dude, Morrowind does not hold up. I'll say it. Morrowind is terrible. It's a terrible RPG. Especially compared to like the things that came after it, like Oblivion and Skyrim. Like it like I can't imagine how I ever stomached that game when I was growing up. It's so frustrating. Like everything about it. One, that every swing you do is a dice roll, entirely dependent on your stats. And so like the very beginning of the game, when you're just a noob, like you can swing your sword at this little freaking creature on the ground like 80 times and it won't connect because like your sword skill isn't high enough. And it's so ridiculous. Like it's just like, it's too much RPG, you know what I mean? Like they went too hard in the direction of RPG with that game. And I literally, it's so strange because I mean, that was only like 15 years ago that I played the game for the first time, and I don't remember sword swings like being a dice roll. I just don't remember that because I was just so enamored with the world of Morrowind. I mean, it was such a breakthrough game at the time that I was probably just like, I don't know, blinded by everything else. But now coming back in and now that I have all this knowledge of all the improvements that they've done to that open world RPG system, it's like you can't go back and play Morrowind anymore. It's just like, it sucks. It's so bad. I mean, like I love the music and the story, but the gameplay is just they've improved on it so much that it's almost impossible for me to go back and play a lot of these older games. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it definitely feels like I don't see a whole lot of people experiencing that, because people go back and they play games like, I don't know, Fallout New Vegas or whatever, which I haven't gone back and played recently, but I know that I'd probably have a very similar experience based on like, you know, playing the crap out of Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 and all that.
Yeah, so New Vegas actually kind of holds up. I guess it depends on how you're going in. I've always thought that like Fallout 3 and even New Vegas, even though they improved it a bit, just had bad gunplay. Like you know that going in. At least I remember.
I don't even know that, because all my memories from playing New Vegas are from when it was the only Fallout game to play. I stopped playing I haven't gone back and replayed New Vegas since Fallout 4 came out, you know?
Okay, yeah, because I played 3. When 3 came out, I was it was sophomore year of high school. I rented it over winter break, and I just played it nonstop, and it was just amazing game, super great. I never played New Vegas. I had friends that kind of played it, but I just never picked it up for whatever reason. So then, time went on. I played 4, and 4 had, a lot of improvements. Combat's better. The game flow's a bit better. I mean, the RPG side suffered a little bit, but
yeah, for
that's
sure.
it. That's a different part. But so anyways, years later, I finally picked up New Vegas because I had this big gap. I had a month of my life where nothing was going on because it was the end of my study abroad session in Germany, and all my friends left. So I was in a country where I knew nobody and didn't really speak the language well. So I was like, I guess I can play an RPG. So
yeah.
I picked up New Vegas, and it's pretty good. What's interesting about 3 that you may not remember looking back is you can't aim down the sights, which blows my mind. Yeah, 3 there's no ADS. Like, it's all just kind of pointing and shooting, and that's kind of why it was bad. New Vegas actually had a system like that. If not, maybe it might have been some of the guns, but I know for a good amount of the guns you can actually like use a sight, which makes it hold up better. It's just not quite as polished as 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, New Vegas is still great, man. If you have time in the future,
I might check it out. But like I said, I typically, at least lately, have been intentionally avoiding old things that I'm nostalgic about because I've been known in the past to kind of ruin things that way. Although I will say, Pokemon Heartgold / Soulsilver still holds up. I go back and play that game every once in a while because I still have one of those cartridges, and I do a little run through the first few gyms. It's still a pretty great Pokemon game, in my opinion. I think it's great.
Do you do a run IRL with the Pokewalker?
I don't think that I think I still have my Pokewalker, but I'm pretty sure the battery died on that. I have to get like a new specific little, those little round batteries, the little watch batteries. I think it takes those.
I bet I still have mine somewhere. But I agree with you. Heartgold, Soulsilver, best Pokemon game ever. Like,
yes, finally someone agrees with me.
Yeah, no, Gold and Silver are the best. Like, Heartgold and Soulsilver are just better versions of Gold and Silver, which before that was the best Pokemon game. Like, that is before, like, Red and Blue. It was like this weird like success that came out of nowhere, and there was nowhere to go but up because the game, it was built by like 3 people in like a year. Like, they did what they could, but there was like a lot of areas to flesh out still. And so, you go from red and blue to Gold and Silver, and it's like, okay, so now you have breeding. Now you have like more diverse items. You have more Pokemon. You have 8 gyms still. Just kidding. You have 16.
16 gyms.
You can go back to the old world and just see everything again. It has the best final boss battle of any game.
Oh man.
Because you face yourself from the previous game.
So surreal.
It's like that. That is like the best sequel. Like, it's literally it just improves on everything across the board.
Definitely.
Yeah. And Heartgold, Soulsilver, it's like that art, like that was like, it was the height of like the pixel art for Pokemon games.
Yes, yeah, I love the way that game looks. It's like I feel like when they started getting more into like 3D and stuff like that. I mean, like, it doesn't. Maybe I'm just. This is where the nostalgia comes in. It's like I have always imagined Pokemon being pixel art stuff, and they still retain a little bit of like that old style in modern Pokemon games, like when using like icons and things like that. But yeah, I mean, as video games evolve, especially the Pokemon series evolves, it's understandable that they would rotate out pixel art and stuff like that. But the way that the pixel art was in Heartgold, Soulsilver, it was like a great like medium. It's like high quality pixel art. You know what I mean? Like, it looks good. And another thing about Heartgold that I liked was the story was really awesome. But the characters were very interesting. A lot of the gym leaders and stuff, which are a lot of the like characters that you run into are some of my favorite gym leaders in all of Pokemon ever. And the villain is named Silver, but you can name him whatever you want, of course. But the red-haired kid, he was like one of the last like rivals who was like just straight up an asshole. And I always thought that was like I at least early on I was just like I like the tradition of the rival being like a genuinely not good person, just because it makes it so much more satisfying when you beat them in battle. Because I mean, battling somebody, it's like it's supposed to be like epic, and there's supposed to be like stakes on the line. And whenever you're battling your rival, you're supposed to be like, I really want to beat this guy because he's like a dick the entire time. I just really want to beat this asshole. But whenever you go and play like some of the newer games, they make your rival into more of your friend than anything, and beating them just feels bad. Like a good example being the rival from the most recent games, Sword and Shield. I mean, there are a bunch of like little nitpicks that I can have about that game. I generally really like Sword and Shield, but if I could nitpick anything in that game, I would say that the rival is like a wimp. He's so like, it's disappointing beating him, you know, because he's just like, oh man, I'll get you next time, or he like genuinely feels depressed when you beat him and you feel bad because the games are designed in a way where like even a little kid could do it. So normally as an adult you're fighting this guy that he's never even able to hit your Pokemon one time, and then at the end of the battle he's like sad. I don't know. It feels bad, but like I would feel better about those fights if the person was like an antagonist, you know? And they haven't been an antagonist for a long time, and I feel like Heartgold Soulsilver was the last time that the rival was an actual antagonist. I mean, like he abused his Pokemon. He shoved people around. He was a bully. It felt good to beat him.
Didn't they do some weird character thing with him at the end where he like realizes he was a dick and like doesn't he just spend the rest of the time in the game training at that like dragon lair?
Yeah. One of the last battles that you have with him, he's definitely calmed down a lot more. He's just like, all right, enough fooling around. You've shown me the error of my ways. I've treated my like. He has a lot of Pokemon that evolve through friendship, and they don't like. For instance, I think he has a Golbat, and Golbat evolves into the next evolution. I forget what it is. Crobat, yeah, through friendship. And he has a Golbat like pretty much the entire game until one of the last battles where he has a Crobat. And I think it's kind of like supposed to imply that he's gotten better as a trainer as a result of you beating him. And it makes you feel like, I don't know, story-wise, it just makes it makes sense, and it makes you feel better, and it makes the character have an arc that is interesting. And I don't know, it's just like one of those little things about the game that you don't really see a whole lot in the Pokemon games that preceded it, and especially in modern Pokemon games, because I think that they've just kind of, I don't know, they've wimped out on making characters mean in Pokemon, unfortunately. But I think that at least traditionally, when I grew up, there were mean characters in Pokemon, and we dealt with it. We beat them in Pokemon battles, and then we felt good about it. So I wish they would do that again.
Yeah, like that. That's character development. Like,
yeah.
Since when has there been character development in Pokemon? Like,
I don't think a long time.
Yeah, like that's such like, especially that little subtle sprinkle of like, oh look, he has a friendship based Pokemon now. Like he's getting better. That's such a cool little touch.
Yeah, it's great. I love Pokemon Heartgold. It's great. Making me want to play it again. I haven't played it in a few years.
You should. It's good. Something about the art you're saying too, those make like to appreciate it more. It's like that the art in that game makes me think that like what they hit with that is what good pixel art indie games try to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like so it could still totally come out like today. And I think another reason Pokemon's a lot easier to go back to than a lot of these other games where you see their sequels developing on more and more. Like you're saying, Morrowind is like just not enjoyable compared to where they've taken a lot of just how the combat flows and like, you know, like Skyrim or something. Pokemon hasn't developed a whole lot. So like,
yeah, exactly. Like the formula hasn't changed much, so it's very easy to go back and play old Pokemon games because it's like, oh, this is very, very similar. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I think we kind of approach things in like a similar way. Because a lot of the games you brought up were things that I kind of wanted to talk about, like Morrowind. Like I guess we don't look at it in the same way exactly. The way I think we're similar is that like we can look back on something and see that it doesn't hold up quite as well, like Morrowind. But like for me, I haven't tried to go back and playing Morrowind because as soon as I was reminded that that's how the attack rolls worked, I was like, that is not gonna fly for me. I cannot go back and play that game. I'll just wait till if they ever finish like Skywind or something.
Yeah.
And go try that then. Yeah, like there's so many other weird little games that I played as a kid that I'm afraid to, like, I don't know. I have no interest in ever going back, and I think it's pure not remembering or not seeing what it's like today. Cause like there's this one like shovelware game I played as a kid called like Blender Bros on the GBA. Did you ever hear about that?
No, but it sounds funny.
Yeah, like it was just some like probably mediocre action platformer. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. I got a 73 on Metacritic, and it's just like games like that, and then Sonic Battle. Did you ever play that?
No.
It was this weird Sonic spin-off game where you are in this like isometric 3D arena, and you play as a Sonic character, and you're fighting against a bunch of other Sonic characters, but you like will build your character like an RPG, and I think it might have been like card based, but like it was yeah, it's just like it's probably going back and playing that would probably be going back and playing like Shadow the Hedgehog. you know, like
I mean, I gotta confess to you, I've actually never in my life played one single Sonic game.
You know, and that's probably okay.
Good.
The one,
I hear they're very popular games, but at the same time, I know that there's a lot of like drama and people having divisive opinions about specific Sonic games. It's like a rough time being a Sonic fan, as far as I can tell.
Well, Sonic. That's a really good example of nostalgia, because I think that like nostalgia is really the only thing keeping Sonic afloat now. Because for the longest, like the first 3 games, the games that were platformers, they're pretty fun. I don't know how well they hold up. I think they do decently since Sonic Mania came out and people were still enjoying it, because it's a very unique style of platformer where it's all about speed and kind of getting into this like, I don't know, almost flow state, because you have to do things really fast and in reaction to things. It's not like Mario where it's about like precision jumps and that sort of thing. So it stands on its own, but when it came to that transition from 2D to 3D, like Mario 64 really nailed it and figured out what a 3D Mario game should be. And like that game, I think still holds up. I played the DS remake of Mario 64 a couple years ago, and I still really enjoyed it. But like Sonic Adventure 1 was I think the first 3D Sonic game, and it was like this weird hub world, like connected to like levels game that was they tried to make it still like it's like a racer almost, where like you're constantly behind Sonic, and I don't know, it was just a weird transition. It didn't go super well. Like those games were kind of fun. Like Adventure 2 was a pretty good game, or at least I remember it being a pretty good game. It might not hold up. But there was never like the Mario Odyssey or you know, Mario 64 of Sonic games. It just kind of fell flat. But those first 3 were good enough where, I don't know, the fan base was able to grab on. And there's a weird Sonic fan base out there. Like like it's kind of a meme.
It's definitely like an infamous fan base for sure, the Sonic fan base.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in. But I know a lot of people who just kind of passively liked the games growing up, so.
Oh yeah, like I was a Sonic fan as a kid. Harder to be nowadays, I guess.
Just never got around to playing any. I don't think I ever had a Sega system or anything like that. so
Yeah,
never really
I
had
got to play
access
the
to it.
Sonic games on like bootleg CDs that my friend would give me. Because he had this like compilation they made. Because I guess they ported them to PC. I don't know, but I would get them from him and I'd play them, and that was pretty cool. It was like a Sonic action pack or something. It was just like all the Genesis games on one disc. Pretty neat.
What about movies? Because I feel like I experience the lack of nostalgia goggles, or at least like I have this weird thing. I might have brought it up before, where it's very difficult for me to enjoy older movies because they're old. That's pretty much as far as it goes. Like, and I realized later. Have I brought that up to you guys before? I feel like I have, just when we're talking about movies, or it's just like older movies just never really hit it for me as much as like movies that are made in the last few decades.
Yeah,
right?
I've heard you make that statement before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've thought about it a little bit, and I realize it's entirely dependent on the things about movies that I enjoy. And I will say that when it comes to like the different elements of movies, like story, visuals, characters, acting, writing, all that stuff, I will say that if I were to make like a top 5 things that I care about when watching a movie, number 1 is visuals, almost all the time, and number 2 is story. And I know that that's generally for a lot of people who enjoy movies as like a more than just something that they watch passively, as like they enjoy it as an art form. I know that a lot of those types of people, probably Gus included, they would probably have that reversed. You know what I mean? They would probably have story as number 1 and visuals as number 2, or visuals probably even further down the list. Story, for the most part, I know that for a lot of people is like the most important thing about a movie, which understandable. Like, that's the entire point of a movie, is to tell a story. But for me, a movie can be a great story, but I am more interested in comparison in how a movie looks and how a movie is presented, and like kind of like visual, like just making my eyes excited or like giving me like a visual treat, you know what I mean? And a lot of older movies just don't come up to that standard. They just don't. Like, they just kind of look worse compared to newer movies. And so even if an older movie has like a really great story, most of the time it's not gonna hit all of the check marks for me, unfortunately. And it was a weird realization that I came to recently, because for the longest time I didn't know why I didn't prefer, or I preferred newer like films to older films, even though those movies are great. You know what I mean? I would rather watch a movie that was made in the last 20 years than a movie that was made 50 years ago or whatever, just on principle. But I just never really knew why, and I think that's why. It's because I'm just more of a visual guy, you know?
Yeah, I think Gus falls somewhere. I think he changes his perspective on what matters most for him, which makes it hard to know if he's gonna like a movie. Because like you've heard him talk about, like, he really enjoyed what was the most recent Star Wars movie? Was it The Last Jedi? Last Skywalker?
The Return of the Skywalker?
Yeah, whatever it was called.
I don't know. I just recently watched that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and
it was terrible.
Well, see, his reason, like, I also thought, like, I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it was decent. I thought there was a lot of weird things with it, but his reason he really liked it was the visuals, which I don't know. Like, visuals are important to me, but for, like, I find myself somewhere in like a middle ground, because like I can't watch old movies, like super old movies. Like, I've never seen what's that one that all the film people geek out on? Citizen Kane? Is that what it is?
That's like a classic, like film student like go to for, like, you know, the magnum opus of film. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's not. I really can't watch that. Like, I feel like
I've never even seen it. Don't plan to.
Yeah, because like before the 70s, I feel like movies were like we kind of talked about this when we talked about Uncut Gems a couple of weeks ago, where we were saying that in Uncut Gems, like people will interrupt each other, and it makes the flow of dialogue really natural, and that's like something people didn't used to do, because like movies kind of from birth were stage productions that you filmed, and you can really see that in older movies where it's like there's not a whole lot of sets, like it's filmed like it's almost like a sitcom where there's just one big like awkwardly sized stage, house, room, whatever they're in, and people will deliver their lines on that, and there's not a whole lot of cuts. And as you go on in time, you see people get a little bit better. And I think in the 70s is where this, like a more primitive version, but still like more recognizable today, version of like framing shots. And like I think modern cinematography was really like coming into a good stride. And I think a lot of what we do today is based upon the work they did then. So I find it easier to watch movies from like the 70s and on, but there's still a lot where they're like figuring it out. A lot of awkwardly paced things. But like I think the Star Wars movies, the original ones, are good. Like I can still watch those. That you definitely know they're old, but they don't feel quite as old. And then like anything from like I feel like the 90s and on is still like good too. Like a couple years ago, I was going through a lot of the older 90s movies, 90s horror movies, like Scream. Like I really like Scream. I thought Scream was a really well done movie. That still holds up. Lord of the Rings. Those movies are from the early 2000s. They're like basically
they look like they were made today. It's very strange.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing is that it's really very easy for me to spot a movie that was made in like 1995 and before. I feel like there was like a switch that turned on or something where it's just like, oh, all of a sudden we have really nice cameras and really nice sound. And like I can go back and watch like Jurassic Park, right? It was made in like 1993. That was like that's the bookmark for me where it's like movies now are getting good. Like Jurassic Park, like kind of, I don't know, it holds up so well in every movie. Oh, most like movies that I enjoy that were made after that point. It's like, dude, that could have been made 10 years ago and I wouldn't known, but it's made like 30 years ago. Like it's crazy. But movies that were made before that, it's like super noticeable to me. Anything that was made in like, 1990 and before, it's like a whole different thing. I think is probably because there was an era where a lot of stuff was being filmed on videotape, and videotape does not scale. But film stock still to this day, I mean, a lot of film stock apparently can scale up to like 8K. So a lot of those films still look good now. But before that, before they invented like those really high quality film stocks, I think it was just it doesn't hold up as well. The visuals, at least. There's still a few, like every once in a while, like I'll remember a movie where, like, for instance, Full Metal Jacket, I think was made in like the mid 80s, and that movie looks decent. The sound quality is not super good, but the movie looks good and it's a great story, and I really like the acting in that movie. So that's still one of my favorite movies, but I can't really think of anything that was made before that I could consider like one of my favorites or like one of the best movies that I've seen. Yeah, I don't really go too far back.
Yeah, I think it really depends. Jurassic Park is a good call because, like, that's a movie where they took a lot of care in filming it. Like, they didn't try to shoehorn bad CGI into it, Like, like, did you see the high res? Like, they basically just re-released it right before Jurassic World in like 2013, where they remastered it and got it into like 4K or whatever.
Yeah, I have it on DVD.
Yeah, and it still looks great because it's like all the dinosaurs aren't CGI. Like the T-Rex, like they built the giant T-Rex head, and it holds up on camera, like getting the film scaled up because it like actually just looked that good in real life.
It's crazy. And there were a few shots like that iconic like first scene where the T-Rex is breaking out in the rain in the dark. Like
That's what I was
a
thinking
lot
of.
a lot of it is real. It's the real animatronic, but they do so many clever like camera moves where it'll be an animatronic in one part of the shot, and then it'll go out of frame for a second, and then it'll be CGI, and it's like it's super hard to tell which is which at that point. Like they just did a really good job of blending the two. I think it was probably at the time, and it probably still is used to this day, the technique of like having a reference for what it's supposed to look like in that environment, in that set environment. It makes it so much easier for computer animators to recreate it in a computer when they know what it's supposed to look like in that exact environment. Because I mean, if you just kind of film an empty plate with nothing, and then you're like, all right, put the thing in the thing and make it look like it belongs in that environment. A lot of the time they have to guess on the lighting, they have to guess on everything. They basically just have to recreate the lighting from what they imagine it would look like, and then it ends up looking bad because it's all done on guesswork. But since they actually built the real T-Rex on set and they have all this footage of what it looks like in the actual environment, the computer animators probably were like, "Oh, okay, then I know exactly the reference that I'm supposed to make it look like." So they were able to like kind of use that as a jumping off point, which probably made it way easier. And it really shows. That's like a perfect it's a perfect example of like the technique being really instrumental in like a movie holding up 30 years later, which is insane to me. It's really cool. You don't really see that. You don't really see an example of that in movies that were made like in the 60s and 70s holding up into the 90s, right?
Oh yeah, like I mean, well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you'd have to ask somebody who was around back then. But I mean, I wouldn't imagine that. I don't know, a movie like 2001: Space Odyssey. You could show to somebody in the 90s and they'd be like, "Oh, that looks real." Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm jaded, but I'll go back and watch that movie, and it's like very clear that all of it is like miniatures and CGI and stuff, or at least like special effects for the most part.
2001. That was enjoyable. I had a good time watching that one.
You had a good time. It's like one of the slowest movies of all time.
Yeah, I don't like. I had to watch it. I mean, we went to the same high school. Did you hear about the sci-fi based English class?
Yeah.
They offered. Did you take that one?
No, but I know a lot of my friends took it, and I heard a lot of stuff from those people about the class. It sounded interesting. Okay. I just never took it.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting. I'm glad I did. But as part of it, it was weird. We had to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I don't know, it was probably the best school movie I ever had to see.
You know what's funny is that I can imagine that being a good movie to watch in a school environment because when you're in school, there isn't a whole lot else to do. But when I watched it, it was on my own time, and it's like a 2-hour movie, and basically nothing happens until the last like 30 minutes of the movie, and even then, it's basically just an acid trip. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah. It's interesting. I think actually I'll take that back. The first like 20 minutes of the movie is pretty awesome because it's super like the musical score is super unsettling, and I don't know. I remember it's hard because I remember really liking that movie the first time I saw it, but on rewatches I was like, man, this movie drags, and it's a great movie to watch for the first time, I think, because especially if you don't really know much going in, other than that's slow. Because I remember that the first like 20 minutes where it's about like the tribe of like Neanderthal monkeys or whatever encountering that monolith.
Yeah.
That's like a really memorable opening to a movie. And then like it transitions from them learning how to use tools or learning how to use weapons into just like hard cut to like the future. It's so cool. It's a great opening to a movie, but the rest of the movie is so boring.
Yeah.
And then the end of the movie's so weird and confusing and like totally just a mind fuck.
Yeah, I get it. When you put it that way, it definitely is the best movie to watch in a school setting. Maybe that's why I did enjoy it. We watched that right after we watched the original Westworld, which I don't know if you
Original
knew was...
wait, are you saying that Westworld is a remake?
Westworld is it's not even it's more like a reimagining of that general idea.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
there
like
was
a robot like or at least like a theme park where there are robots that you can go and interact with.
Yeah, that's set in the Wild West, you know.
Yeah.
It was some like Westworld started off as it was a like I think it was 1973. It was a TV movie. Just with that idea. It was just like a real novel idea.
Yeah.
The movie wasn't super great. Even from like I watched it 2011. It didn't hold up then. I doubt it holds up even better 40 years later.
Yeah.
But
that's funny.
But yeah, that's what's kind of cool about like some of these sci-fi movies. It's like when you get like they're remaking Dune.
I'm excited about that. I love that director that's making that movie. So
yeah, and like because like the original Dune movie wasn't very good. At least I didn't enjoy it. It's dated, yeah. It's one of those. I don't know if it was made in the 70s. It might have been the 80s or something, but it doesn't hold up, or at least it didn't when I watched it. But that's what's cool is like if there's like a good idea, like I feel like it's right for like a modern remake. Like Westworld, at least season 1 of the HBO show, is so much better than that TV movie. And then like Dune, I imagine, is just gonna be like, I'm hoping is gonna be a lot better, and maybe capture a lot more of the essence of what that original Dune novel was.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because one of my favorite movies, it's on my top 20 now, is the Bladerunner 2049. I fucking love that movie. That movie's awesome, and I had watched that movie before I had seen the original Blade Runner. And this is probably ties into the whole nostalgia thing, and I don't really have any sort of I don't know, perspective of like the time period movies were made in. It's like I'm watching it now, so I'm gonna enjoy it against my own like relevancy or whatever. And I had seen Blade Runner 2049 and I loved it. I'd seen it a few times. And somebody's like, "Oh, you should watch the original Blade Runner." I was like, "Oh, okay, sounds good." And it was on Netflix, so I watched it. And man, I just don't like it. It's not good. I just don't. I really just didn't enjoy it at all. And I know that's like sacrilegious for a lot of people because Blade Runner is like, to a lot of people, is one of the best sci-fi movies of all time. But it's like I had already seen what I view as like a huge improvement. Like it just like it takes everything that Blade Runner, that at least what the original Blade Runner, from what I could tell, was trying to be, and it just like did it better. I don't know. And I went back and watched it, and I felt like I was just kind of watching like somebody making a worse version of something that I already like greatly enjoyed. And I don't know. It's very strange. I don't know. So much about that movie is so strange to me. Like,
wait, are you saying the original Blade Runner doesn't hold up, or 2049 doesn't hold up, or either?
What? No. I really liked 2049. I think that movie.
Okay.
I mean, the movie came out like 2014 or something.
Well, I've never seen any of them. I do because I was curious.
Oh, okay.
I've heard good things.
No, I think Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner with Harrison Ford. I think that one came out in like the 80s. And I watched it on Netflix. It was like I think it's the director's cut that I watched. But yeah, the whole time I was just I was so bored. I was like, man, I've seen. I think it was just like at that point I had just seen people maybe who were inspired by Blade Runner later on improving upon it, in my opinion, and it was like me going back and watching the test. the test version of like stuff that I had already enjoyed, if that makes sense. I don't know. It was a very weird experience because I went into it knowing that I was about to watch something that people they go crazy over. They're like, "Oh man, Blade Runner is the best sci-fi movie, and there's never going to be another one like it." But it's, I don't know. I like I like the newer versions of people who are clearly inspired by that kind of stuff. Like it's all improvements in my opinion.
Yeah, I think movies. I could find myself being easier to watch something I enjoyed before than games. Like I think I would have a harder time going back and playing an old game because it will feel dated and like the nostalgia of it would wear off. But I can imagine and I imagine that's how a lot of people feel when you go back and watch. Like let's say you were a kid when the original Star Wars came out, and you go and watch them, and it's just comforting. It looks, and because then people make a big stink about like George Lucas went and updated the visuals for that movie, and everybody got mad. Granted, because a lot of it looked like shit, but also because it ruined their idea of what it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it could be comforting. Maybe that's what a lot of people do, but like we were saying earlier, I'm kind of on the same camp where it's like one of our super early pod convos is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's Paranormal Activity 3. And
yeah.
I won't watch it again because I know it won't hold up.
Yeah.
And I know it will be ruined. And it's like I don't want to do that to myself.
I feel you. I feel you.
I got to keep it pure in my heart.
Sure, yeah. It gets to a point where you just don't want to ruin the nice memories you have about stuff. Because it does kind of change. It makes you think. It's like, man, I had bad taste back then. I mean, like a great example for me. I mean, you brought up Star Wars. When I was growing up, like I don't know, 12, 13 years old. I freaking loved the prequels. I loved Phantom Menace. I loved Clone Wars, and I loved or Attack of the Clones. I mean, and I loved Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith. I watched all the time growing up. I watched it all the time. I loved it. The lightsaber duels were so freaking epic. But I mean now I can't watch any of those movies without laughing. Like it's just so they're an embarrassment. They're like some of the worst movies of all time. They really are. And it's like embarrassing to think back on a time where like I would, if you asked me back then, I was like, what's one, like name 5 of your favorite movies? Like Revenge of the Sith would have been in that list. Like it's so I don't know, humbling to reevaluate your movie tastes and I don't know, think back on a time when when you actually like, I don't know, liked those kinds of things. It's very strange. That just like it feels like you're not even the same person.
Those movies are a good example because it was this weird like years later thought I had in like high school, like because as a kid I also I loved Phantom Menace, battle droids, droidicas, the Naboo starfighter. Like the imagery was so good.
Yeah, and the lightsaber, like I think it was in Attack of the Clones at the very end in the arena when all the Jedi come out and they all have lightsabers, and then there's that huge battle with like a million lightsabers. Like, dude, that was like as a kid, that was just like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I will.
You can't watch it now without laughing. It's just like, what the fuck is going on? What is this?
See, like before I go on and shit on the prequel trilogy, I will maintain I think the prequel trilogy was a net positive because of the mass lore expansion that Star Wars got. They added so much stuff into the universe that I think really defines what modern Star Wars is, Like,
sure, yeah.
Because it was very small scope in the original. There's a lot more, and I think that's thanks to it. But that's about all you can thank the original trilogy for.
Well, the memes, because I do get a big kick out of the prequel memes, because I'm so familiar with the prequels memes at this point that I understand all of the references. I love
democracy. But what I wanted to say about those movies is I had this. As a kid, I kind of knew they were bad, but I didn't quite digest that they were bad. Because like as a kid, I saw them and I would think to myself like, wow, the dialogue in this movie, it's just like I thought Star Wars was timeless and classic. And like reflecting back on it, like people would say like, oh, the prequels are bad. I'm like, but like Star Wars is like, this is a timeless movie. Like this is what this looks like, and this is from 8-9-year-old Matt perspective. And then when in high school I went back and watched them, I realized like, oh, that wasn't me identifying that this dialogue. I mean, let me rephrase that. This dialogue is not like other movies because this dialogue is just bad. That's what I was seeing. I was like, this dialogue is unique in how shitty it is. Like,
yeah.
Just like how it's phrased and how it's delivered. Like it had this own vibe to it because the vibe was garbage. And like you don't see I didn't see a whole lot of that. So.
I mean, you were more perceptive than I was because even when I was like 12 years old, I would watch those movies and I think when I watched Revenge of the Sith. What happened was I liked every other aspect of the movie so much, including the dialogue. I thought the dialogue was like funny or whatever they were trying to be. And then, but there's this one scene. It's probably still one of the worst scenes in the movie. But he was so bad that it even stuck out to my like stupid brain back then. It's the scene where Anakin and Padme are on like a balcony at night. And he's saying stuff like, I am so in love. And she's like, oh, so love has blinded you? And he's like, no, it's because I'm so in love with you. And like it goes round and round, and it's like really weird and like it seemed like someone wrote a first draft of a scene and then no one corrected them, and they kept it in the movie. But it's so pointless. It's basically just the two characters sitting there and be like, I'm in love with you. No, I'm in love with you though. It's so bad. It's like it's terrible dialogue. And even back then, maybe because I was like a kid and I was just like, ew, I want to hear about love. I want to see some more lightsaber fights. It stuck out to me so much. Yeah, cut a jump, like do a backflip and cut her head off. That would be so cool. But even back then, that was always the scene that I always fast forwarded through because I couldn't stand it. Even back then, I was just like, this is terrible. I don't know why they kept this in the movie. It's like, yeah, we know that they're in love. Come on. I mean, he wants to marry her, or he is married to her. It was so weird. I always just kind of watch those movies for the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Like every other kid, you know?
Yeah, and what I was saying is I didn't realize it as a kid. I realized it was different as a kid, but I thought it was like good different.
Sure,
it was in
yeah,
high
yeah.
school.
You knew
like,
something was off,
bad.
though. That's what I'm giving you credit for.
Okay.
Is that you knew something was off. To me, I was just like, oh no, it's badass when Anakin says, what does he say?
Sand.
Or no, it's bad. Like when he's fighting Obi-Wan, he's like looking at him, he's like, you're either with me or you're my enemy. Like those lines and stuff, like to me back then it was just like, that's so badass. It's true. He's either with him or he's his enemy. Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. They're about to fight. I love the anime fight dialogue, you know? It's so cool, you know? But now looking back, it's like a joke. Like those would be great movies to watch like with friends nowadays, you know what I mean? Like it's not like on the same level as going to see a screening of The Room, you know? You don't even really watch the movie, you just sit there and yell like at the movie and laugh at it, you know? I can't. I would love to do something like that someday. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure a lot of people have probably done it with the prequels.
Well, I imagine it's developed more. Star Wars has a lot of people that have made like alternate viewing methods, which I thought was pretty. Yeah, like when I was rewatching them in high school, I was watching with one of my friends, and she was like, "Oh, we should watch them in the Machete order," and I was like, "What? the Machete order?" She's like, "Yeah, so you ignore 1, and you watch 2, 3, 4, 5, 6." Or no. It was you ignore 1 didn't happen, and you watch 2 and 3 to get the story of Anakin. Then you watch 4 and 5 because it's the story of. No. Sorry, backwards. You watch 4 and 5, you get the story of Luke Skywalker. Then you watch 2 and 3 to get the story of Anakin, and then the final chapter is 6, because then it's both of those main characters coming together. Because 6 is kind of about both of them, and it's actually kind of like a smart way to view it, but.
I guess
it's just like one of those weird like it's like it's just such a weird way. It's like to want to rewatch something, like you're rewatching something so much that you're like, you know what, this would flow really well if we put 4 here and 6 here. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just funny. But I imagine that there's even crazier ways now, because now you got the Clone Wars, you got Mandalorian, you got the
Yeah,
bad trilogy.
there's just so many freaking Star Wars things now. It's nuts. You
Did
know,
you hear
a lot of the spin-offs and stuff, well, I mean, the major spin-off that came out was like Rogue One, and then the Han Solo thing. I actually really liked the Han Solo movie. I know it like bombed or whatever, but I watched it on Netflix and I was like, this is pretty good. And I think it was because it didn't feel like a Star Wars movie, really. It just felt like a space adventure movie. And I liked that about it. Same with Mandalorian. Didn't feel like a Star Wars like thing at all. It just felt like a space adventure, you know? I hope they do more of that stuff, even though the Han Solo movie tanked. It's kind of sad that like that movie didn't do well enough because that was like one of the only Star Wars things that I've liked in the past few years.
Yeah, I think because I same boat as you. Didn't go see it in theaters, but I watched it on Netflix, and I was like, yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think when Mandalorian was really well received, so I think we're gonna get more stuff like that. But I imagine that Han Solo, or what was it, just Solo, didn't do as well because you're making a movie about an iconic character that isn't the actor that people remember him as, and it's putting him in a different tone than the original movies. Like that just kind of seems like I don't think they'll have an issue with that with whatever the next project. It's supposed to be like an Obi-Wan movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll have that issue with that one. I think they'll be able to do whatever tone they want. Just because, like, I mean, Obi-Wan's iconic, but he's not like Harrison Ford Han Solo iconic.
Yeah,
you know?
And that actor, Ewan McGregor, is a great actor, so I know he'll do well with it. But yeah, you're right. It could be that it wasn't Harrison Ford, and also I don't know. I think that the only people that really go and see Star Wars movies these days are people that just like don't care either way. Like there are people who probably saw Solo and they were like, yeah, pretty good, but they're not like big Star Wars fan. They just go and see whatever the big movie is. And then there are the people who go and see those movies who are hardcore fans who are only going to see the movie for the Star Wars stuff that they know or whatever. This is the same people that like Rogue One because they just shoved as many like familiar things into the movie as possible. And just was like, oh, it's just a spot to reference the movie. It's not even a story. It's just spot to reference the movie. All the characters die at the end, and you know what's going to happen. And it's pointless, like, where they end up, because it's like, okay, why would you make Rogue One makes no sense to me, because why would you make a movie about some small, like, inconsequential thing that was just, I don't know, a small plot point in the movie that came after it. It's like, how did they get the plans for the Death Star? Oh, I don't know. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Why would you make an entire movie about that where the characters are not interesting and they all die at the end? And no, and it's just, like I said, it's just spot the reference the movie. It's just making it so that people can be like, oh, more lights, more Star Wars stuff. Yay! I like Star Wars. Yay!
I agree with you where I didn't enjoy Rogue One a whole lot. Like, I felt like it had the Halo Reach problem where it had all these people that you don't know but you're supposed to care about, and they die and there's no impact.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good comparison, actually.
Yeah, because I just viewed them as the same thing. It's like, I don't care about any of this, and it's just, it feels so rushed, you know? Like,
yeah.
There's not a lot of good character building because they're trying to get all the shit in. But it was a good idea, because that's kind of what you said you were wanting, right? Like, it's not Star Wars, but like it's like another thing in the Star Wars universe. I guess it's a little closer to the main plot.
I don't like how it was like directly connected to something that's already happened. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it was something so tiny. It was almost like they were like, what should we make a movie about? Well, there was this thing that happened at the beginning of New Hope where they got the plans for the Death Star. So we could make a movie about that. It's like, well, why don't you make a movie about how Anakin got his speeder or whatever? Like, just pick any like stupid moment in any movie and make a movie about it. Like, don't do that. Just come up with a different story that happens like separate to what happened, in all of those other movies, and that's where it gets interesting. And that's also kind of why I liked Solo, is because you don't really hear, the only thing that you really hear, the only thing that was like guilty of that, like, oh, remember this, is like when he did the Kessel Run thing, which is like a one-off thing that he mentioned in a movie sometime. I don't even remember when he said it, but he was like, oh, this is the ship that made a Kessel Run. And then that was like, I think it was the climax of the movie or something, that he did the quote unquote Kessel Run or whatever, which is like whatever, but no one really, it wasn't like the plot of the movie. It was just something that happened, and the rest of it was totally something that you never hear about in any other movie. It was like a whole different story. So it's interesting to see those things, but I don't know why they would. It's so silly that they're just like, in order to get people into the seats, we have to make sure that people know what's going to happen. It's like, that's not why I go and watch a movie, so I can know what's going to happen. I want to see a new thing. And Star Wars is never a new thing, it seems. It's very difficult for them to get into a position where they're making a new thing with Star Wars. It's always the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I think they realize that that's not panning out, because, like, I don't think it's going to happen, but you've heard the rumors about how Disney is thinking about canceling that sequel trilogy from canon, right? Like, they're just going to undo button it.
I mean, I could see why. I think they're starting to realize that there's not really a whole lot of places to go with Star Wars. It's like, what do you have? You have Jedi, you have Sith. What else do you have? I mean, there's not really much else to do.
Well, going directly forward is dumb. Like, that was a dumb decision. It's like, what you do is you go out, or you go very far forward or backwards. Like, you go to Knights of the Old Republic era, or you go into the future of Star Wars, which I don't know what that looks like, because it's already sci-fi.
So disconnected from what we already know that it might as well just be a different story, like a different it's almost like that never even happened. You know what I mean? Maybe with small references here and there because it's history. But yeah, I agree. I think that they should just try and make entirely separate stories disconnected from what we already know, because we've just seen so much of it. There are 9 goddamn episodes in that one story. Like, we don't need to see any more of that. Darth Vader is like Darth Vader is a part of 9 movies. We're done with Darth Vader. Shut up about Darth Vader. He sucks.
So, wait, so you said you liked The Mandalorian, right?
I did, because it's completely disconnected from everything else. It's like nobody even, like, the only thing that slightly references that Yoda is the same species as the little baby.
Baby Yoda, yeah.
And the Mandalorian is the same race, or at least has the same armor as Jango and Boba Fett, which I think someone said. I think I've heard somewhere that Boba Fett isn't even a Mandalorian. He's just a bounty hunter wearing Mandalorian armor.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just completely disconnected entirely from everything else that we know about that race, and Yoda, the little baby Yoda thing is the only other reference that people know. But other than that, very few like Star Warsy things, really. It's just kind of like an episodic space adventure show, which is cool. I liked most of the episodes. There were a few episodes that were just kind of like lame.
That's what I was gonna ask. I was like, did you like all of it?
No. There were some like the one where it was like a Seven Samurai reference, where he just like trained all of those people in the village to fight the ATST or the AT-AT Walker or whatever the heck that thing was. That was stupid. That whole episode was pointless.
Well, see, that's what I wanted to talk about. Like, because
there were a few other ones where it was just like, okay, could have done without that episode. Next,
yeah, that's like the whole show, man. The whole so Mandalorian is like the first 2 episodes, great trajectory, like setting up this great idea, like this Mandalorian guy is kind of going rogue a tiny bit, and he has to care for this little baby Yoda. It's like interesting. A lot of things we don't know. I'm excited to see where this goes. And then it turns into like the first 2 episodes lead into each other. Like it's like a serial continuous thing.
Yeah.
And then mid-season, it goes into like, week by week, oh, this is the adventure of the week. Oh, we're going to train the people in the forest. Oh, we're going to do a bank heist. Oh, looky here. Like, oh, we said we had to get this baby Yoda somewhere quick, right? No, we're taking our time for 4 episodes because we didn't think this part through. And then they get to the last 2 and they're like the first 2 where it's like they lead into each other. They build off each other. There's like a lot of things that it feels like you can essentially cut out all of the middle of that show besides maybe where they introduce the bounty hunter girl and get rid of all the other episodes and then put the first 2 and last 2 together. And then
I guess you're right from a narrative point of view, but what I liked about the format of Mandalorian is that it for the most part you can watch episodes individually without seeing anything before or after it, and generally like the episode. And you don't really see a whole lot of that anymore. You see so much. I mean, like so much of Netflix and so much of like those like internet produced shows. They're basically just like 8-hour-long movies at this point. You know what I mean? They're not even really TV shows anymore to me. Like a good example would be like Stranger Things or something. Like when you watch a season of Stranger Things, it's like you kind of have to watch it all at once, or at least over the course of a few days, like in a row, because it's all so connected to each other. It's like every episode is just a new development in the overarching plot of the entire season, and the entire season is just a huge movie at that point. And I don't know, I feel like TV shows have kind of lost that episodic feel to it, and I liked how Mandalorian kind of made a return to form in that way, where it's just like, oh, this is just an episode to episode thing. Like SpongeBob never had an overarching plot. It was just like, here's what SpongeBob's doing today, and these characters, and you like these characters.
Drama.
I know. It's not really a great comparison, but what I'm saying is that a lot of TV shows just don't have an episodic feel to them anymore, and that show kind of brought it back, and it was nice to see. And I think maybe you probably just enjoy the long movie shows,
well,
which is fine. I like those too, but it was just kind of interesting how. I don't know. They felt like it was very clear to me that Jon Favreau, who is I really like a lot of the stuff that he's made, except for the fucking stupid Lion King remake. But it's cool that they let him do it, because I think that he had a vision, and he was just like, let's make this a serialized thing. Let's make this like an 80s TV show where it's just like, today the Power Rangers are doing this,
Yeah,
they have to beat the big bad guy at the end of the season, but I mean overall, it's they have a little adventure here and there, and the adventure is fun and cool. I mean, I didn't like the training people in the woods episode, because I thought that the characters were dumb, and I thought it was stupid how there was just like, oh, I should leave the child here. It's like, dude, you can't leave the child. Like, they know where from the very moment he made that suggestion, I was just like, dude, you can't leave him here. They know where it is. They will come and kill him. Like, he won't be safe. He won't be safe here. It doesn't make any sense.
Dude, the thing that episode, like, good. See, it's not the serialized nature. I'm fine with that. Like, I do like throughput in shows. Like, I do like the Stranger Things and whatnot, but I would be okay with the serialized format, but it felt like nothing had stakes, and then like that episode committed a cardinal sin that I absolutely can't stand in movies, is where they posed a dramatic point that you knew was total bullshit the moment they did it. Like when the milfy lady that he's eyeing the whole time in the city is like, you should stay here and live a normal life and raise the kid. And he's like half considering it. And it's like, we know that it's not gonna fucking happen. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like if you leave
settle
Baby
down
Yoda,
in the 4th episode of the show. Yep, totally.
Yeah, it's like, that's just obviously not gonna happen. It's like, I hate when shows do that. It's like nobody thinks that you're telling the truth.
It would make sense. It would make sense for them to propose that plot point like 4 or 5 seasons in, when people are like, oh, maybe this is the end of his adventure career. He's gone through a lot already. You know what I mean? Like, this could be where he settles down. We at least have some like realism to it. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know. I only saw it once because I just kind of got a free trial for Disney Plus and then watched it all in like 2 days and then canceled it. But I should go back and rewatch them because it would be interesting on a rewatch. But for like one of my favorite like serialized episodes was the one where they just had to break that guy out of prison because it was just like it was so simple and like they had all these kooky characters and I like Bill Burr and I like Clancy Brown was hilarious and that he's like a fucking demon. Like it's such a cheesy, weird, like cool concept, cool simple concept for a show. It kind of reminded me of like Star Trek a little bit. Because like Star Trek always had these episodes. I only saw like a few seasons of that show with like my aunt way back when I was like 9. But so many of those episodes are so like straightforward and simple. The sets are always just like there's like 2 or 3 sets the entire episode, and it's always like indoors, and like the whole episode is just talking, and like maybe somebody will like punch someone at the end. Like it's so simple, and it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, where like the entire reason that the episode is simple is because of budget constraints because they got to make so many episodes of a show.
Well, and because all the budget went to the first and last 2 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. They had to save it for the big finales, and then the rest is kind of like, oh, this episode we're in a cave, and on this episode we're in a big field the entire time.
You know, thinking back, I think I really only didn't like 2 episodes of that show, but they were so bad that it made because like I like the show, like I'll watch season 2, I'm excited for season 2, but it was like those 2 episodes, specifically the one with the cardinal sin of no, he's not going to stay in the forest, duh, and the other one that it was just bad was where he was like he had to hire that bounty hunter to go after the other bounty hunter. And it's
yeah. I don't know. That had some twists and turns. I was genuinely surprised when he shot the lady. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I saw everything coming from like a mile away.
Oh really?
I was like, oh, he look, fucking tried to backstab you. Big fucking shock. like I don't know.
Yeah.
I just those 2 I just really didn't enjoy, but the rest of it, pretty good. And I think it's a good format because, like, I think kind of what they were trying to strike was, did you ever watch Fringe?
No.
Oh, okay. Fringe was one of the shows that J.J. Abrams went and made after Lost, and it was kind of like X-Files meets I don't know, like it's kind of just like it was like a early or like a 2010s reimagining or mid like whatever it came out, reimagining of like X-Files in a way, where there's like a monster of the week and there's like a lot of paranormal stuff and has that J.J. Abrams of like, look at all these questions. You don't get any of the answers. But they did kind of like what Mandalorian does, where there'd be a couple episodes where there'd be like really thick story threads and then it'd be like monster of the week, monster of the week, monster of the week. Oh, look, story. And it was like, but then it would like, I think that was like the best thing they kind of did, and like I think a good hybrid show where it's serialized and then also standalone is like when you bring characters back. Like I think Mandalorian's final episodes were so good because they brought back the good characters from all those standalone episodes, like the robot and the bounty hunter girl, like getting everybody together for that like final mission in a way. Like I think it's good because it just gives you callbacks and like kind of like continuity throughout the whole season.
It was pretty neat how they it all kind of accumulated in one spot at the end. And I mean like they had some pretty like cool cliffhangers. I mean like we still don't really know what the fuck is up with the Baby Yoda thing.
Yeah.
And we were introduced to like the main villain like at the very end, which is like Gus Fring with a friggin' with the black lightsaber. So that'll be interesting to find out more about. So
yeah, dude, how come that guy is just like he's the villain in everything right now?
It's because he did such a fucking great job as Gus Fring in Breaking Bad that he's like typecast for the rest of his life.
This is like 10 years later. Like
I know, but like I mean, like it really just shows how fucking great that character was in Breaking Bad. Like he's like so good in that show. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to see what he does. Like he's awesome.
Yeah, but you saw that he's in the newest Far Cry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the bad guy in Far Cry. He's the bad guy in Mandalorian. He's
Yup.
bad guy
I've
in
seen
Better
him in
Call
a bunch of
Saul.
other stuff where he's like that, where he's like a mean guy or whatever. He's just a good villain character.
Yeah. He must have took a break from acting because he seems to be in a lot of stuff now, but he wasn't really after Breaking Bad, so.
He probably coasted off of those residuals for a while, then he got back into it, you know?
Dude, he's probably still getting residuals off
Oh,
of.
yeah. Breaking Bad's great.
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch that show too. I haven't seen it in like a few years. I've seen the entire series like 3 or 4 times through, but I gotta rewatch it every once in a while.
Yeah, it holds up so well. Like season 1, I still stand by like season 1 is not super great. They're figuring it out, but like one of the best scenes in that show is Hank getting the phone call that the hitmen are coming after him.
Oh man, that was crazy. I saw that that was like one of the first episodes that I saw live because I got into the show kind of late. So I was watching a bunch of like I got like the first few seasons well, not on DVD, but I got them through means that wouldn't necessarily be deemed legal, but I watched all of the episodes up until the point where it was still airing, and I think that was like one of the episodes that I watched when it aired, and that was so crazy. I hate watching Breaking Bad with commercial breaks. Or breaks in between episodes, actually, because it's like they always have such crazy cliffhangers. I thought that Hank died then. I was just like, oh, Hank's dead. They killed off Hank already? Jeez. Okay. But then he survives, and then there's like a huge arc with him making a recovery, and then he gets killed for real. But
watching things with commercials, something I'm not nostalgic about.
Exactly.
I'm glad we're past that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, when we would have Breaking Bad viewing parties in high school, and we would no phones, everybody off of social media. It's an hour after the episode aired. Now we watch it so we can fast forward on our TiVo.
Yes,
that's how old we are. We had TiVo back then.
Mm-hmm.
The weird little stopgap between the transition from TV to full digital.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Dane, I think we have thoroughly cemented ourselves as old men.
Sure. Yeah. Compared to maybe a few of our viewers. I mean, we're not that old, but we're definitely at the point where we can remember things that people don't remember. And I think that makes you old officially. If you can remember things that other people that you can interact with don't remember them. That's the cutoff.
Oh, okay. So before we wrap up, another old person thing. Who was I was talking to somebody today at work about this, actually. So like, I'm just going to pose this question to you. Imagine do you use your hands to talk? Like, do you move your hands and talk sometimes?
Yeah, a little bit.
If
not
you were
not a crazy amount, but enough.
Yeah, but so if you were to make a hand motion to suggest you're on the phone, what would you do?
Thumb and pinky out. Put it up to my like head, like I'm on the phone.
Yeah, people don't do that anymore.
Really?
Because you know what kids do now?
Oh, what?
They just hold their hand up to their head. Like they're on a smartphone, a flat phone that doesn't flip out.
Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Isn't that crazy, though? That's just like, that blew my mind. I was like,
I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that, but I mean, I don't really interact with a whole lot of kids, so there's that.
It's like the really young generation now, where it's like that has never been something in their life that they've had to...
The flippable phone, or at least the phone that's shaped like a banana, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I imagine it's not all of them. Like it's probably one of those like social things where you pick up.
Yeah. Or you just kind of like you're miming what you mean to do. I mean, like that whole pinky with the thumb. I mean, you're just kind of miming what a phone looked like. And so I guess if you're only familiar with phones being flat rectangles, then you would try and emulate a flat rectangle, and that would be your palm. That would be your hand. So it makes sense. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
we're
weird,
evolving
dude.
as a species.
Yeah, language evolves over time. Whoa.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? All right. Well, thank you, Dane. I just want to let you know that this has been the Motion Pixel Podcast. I'm Matthew Rawlings, full host. No August Meyer here today. I do believe he sends his regards, though.
Hey, Motion Pixels, August here.
And thank you, Mr. Uncle Dane, Camper Dane, the baddest boy of comedy, for joining me and having this wonderful trip down nostalgia lane.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was a fun time, good conversation.
Mm-hmm. Theme song.
I'm finished.
Nice. That was good. Who needs a Gus? Fuck a Gus.
Fuck a Gus.